everything in the class.
Okay, so today we start positive psychology, so it's gonna be a little different than negative psychology.
The usual.
Than our usual. However, and it's interesting because Trisha was just sharing a story about her car being broken into. So take out your symbol dictionary. So one of the things that we do, Shayla, is that I open up a book and we get like a theme and we get a symbol because there are many different schools of psychology. I work more with the psychoanalytic. That poster there has a lot of the different theories. So I'm much more part of the psychoanalytic theory, and I work with a theorist named Jung, J-U-N-G. So one of the big things with psychoanalysis or Jungian therapy is symbol. So I talk a lot about symbol, you see everything on the table, so when it's relevant, I bring it into class. So take out your notebook, and let's talk about windows. So you just mentioned windows. What does the symbol of a window evoke? Free? Okay, perfect, so put that down. And why is it freedom, Stacy?
Because if the window is closed, someone might consider it to be like a trap, whatever, and then once you open that window, there's fresh air going in and out, so.
Okay, listen to what she said, fresh air. Window, the word window actually comes from an Icelandic word. That's wind-eye. So if you think of wind, that's air. So people that might use the symbol of window in a metaphor or a story, or you can use this with air people, because it's like fresh air. And you're absolutely right. Windows evoke fresh air. What else do windows evoke? The symbol of a window. What does it make you think of? Any stories that you remember from childhood that start out with a window?
The 3 little pigs.
The 3 little pigs?
The 3 little bears.
The 3 little bears went
Yeah,
through the window?
and they had the porridge right there, and that's how Goldilocks got inside, because it was filled with the porridge. It was bothering her nose.
Oh, but I didn't realize it was a window. I thought it was the door.
Yes, it wasn't really a door, because the bottom is a door, and then the whole other part is like a whole invisible window thing.
Okay, I don't remember that particular story with the window, but doesn't make it not relevant. Okay, so the 3 little bears. So there's something there maybe with an opening, allowing her to enter, and windows are a way of entering a space. What do they say about the eyes? They're the windows of your soul. Yes. The window of your soul. Okay. The stories that I remember that have a window is Cat in the Hat.
Absolutely.
You remember Cat in the Hat? What are the boy and the girl doing?
Looking outside.
Door, isn't that how they
They're
got into
looking
the
outside.
thing, the drinking thing, they flew outside the window?
They didn't fly, it was raining.
Yeah, they couldn't get
It was
the flight.
raining and they were waiting for a better day because their mom was at work, and then the Cat in the Hat came in and made a mess. But it's a longing to be outside or a longing for something that we're being kept from. And the other story is Snow White, where the Wicked Witch is looking outside the window. And then they move to show us Snow White and how the Wicked Witch doesn't have children of her own, and and then the story starts. So try, when we're looking at symbol, try to link it to a story that you remember from childhood. Why would we use story? To relate something to a client,
Yeah.
to relate information, absolutely. Okay, people remember stories. Yesterday on NPR, I was listening to this article, and it was about this tribe. They live somewhere, I think, like they're Eskimo type tribe. And one of the things that they teach their children is to keep cool. They don't have anger. in this particular society, they don't have anger. And one of the reasons is that every time a child does something, rather than yelling at the child, rather than punishing the child, they tell them a story. So they say, oh, if you get too close to the water, there's a sea monster, or if you don't put your shoes on, there's a monster, or whatever. And so they teach the children to not have anger and to keep a cool head.
Including adults.
Yes, those children become adults, and then those adults are in control. They tend to be more in control. So they're using story as a way to teach a lesson. So when you have a symbol, or when someone tells you a story, or they use a symbol in a session, it's because they're trying to give you a message of some sort. And you, in turn, can do that with a client. You can give them the symbol, or you can even ask them, what does a window evoke? Or what story do you remember that has a window? And in your case, you said that
I was
there were
thinking
bears.
Rapunzel.
Oh, Rapunzel, okay. There you go, absolutely, she's trapped. Windows can be being trapped. That you're looking on the way out, but you don't know how you're gonna get out to that piece of whatever's out there.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
I remember in Jersey, you know, the houses have like 3 floors sometimes, and then an attic and a basement. We lived in an attic, right? So there was a window in my parents' room, and me and my brother's room, in the living room, and then once you walk down the stairs, there was a window too. So I remember when it would rain, I would have to look out the window to see who was playing outside or whatever. And then in the other one, it was like a stick that you could pull out and then open the window like that, but it still had the cover part. Yeah. So that was the one in the living room. So when September 11th happened, we could see the smoke coming from there. Yeah, because we lived we lived in the middle of Main Street and the projects, which wasn't the best place.
Okay, so maybe windows can be a signal of safety,
Yeah.
or keeping you from, if she's sharing a story on 9/11, that window is keeping her from danger.
Yeah.
They're created a distance. So when you bring up a symbol, or you ask a client what something evokes in them, you'll get a story from their life. And that could be a space that you could start talking about something with the client. So windows evoke, good morning, windows evoke different things for each of us. And you were just talking about all the windows being broken in the cars that got broken into. You know, so windows could be fragile. Windows could be supposed to be a protective measure, but they're not necessarily. So it's important that we be able to communicate with clients, and that we listen to symbols that they say, and that we hear what they're saying behind that. So I want to do a little activity. I just need 2 volunteers. There's no counseling involved.
I could be a volunteer. I'm always a volunteer though.
Okay, and Carmen.
Carmen, let's go.
She's so volunteer.
This one doesn't involve talking, so I figured she would be good for it.
Wait, do we take
Here, bring 2 chairs.
Carmen, go get it.
And the reason I want to do this activity is because the other day we were talking about intuition, and someone gave a really intuitive response. I don't know who it was, maybe it was Nicole. And then James asked about intuition, and him saying that he felt that he uses intuition, but then I've said that it's not intuition. So I want to do this little activity. It's an intuitive exercise, okay? So get closer.
Get close, I don't bite. No, just kidding.
So get closer. You're going to close your eyes, okay? No, actually, you're going to close your eyes. You're going to open your eyes. And what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes, and everything you hear, feel, see, no matter what it is, you're going to say it out loud. So let's say you see a window, you see an egg, you hear
Oh,
noise,
it's
you,
like in my mind.
exactly, in your mind that you see it,
I thought
okay?
it was
No, but you're gonna get close, and then every time she says something that resonates, you're just gonna touch her leg to let her know that that makes sense. So if she says the 3 little pigs and that makes sense to you, for whatever reason, you touch her leg.
Okay.
So we wanna see how intuitive we are. Okay, so get closer, and you close your eyes, and we're just gonna do it for a little while. So you start when you're ready.
Wait, it has to only be the window? With
No, forget the window. The window is just an
Oh.
example of a symbol. So anything.
My dad's dad. My seniors. My brother's birth. Hospitals. Walking. Playing with my son. Communication between me and my brother. Arguments with my mom. Facebook. Weather. Vacations. My old house.
Okay.
That was it.
That was it, yeah. So how did you see these things? It's interesting because you were talking a lot of personal stuff,
Yeah.
and yet you still resonated with them. That was interesting. I wasn't expecting that. So what
like, what did I see?
Yeah, like how
in
did you
my
see it?
mind?
How did you get the information?
Well, my old house in Jersey, like I said, walking from, like, we used to always walk to my aunt's and grandparents' place, so that was always nice. My seizures, how can I not remember?
But did you see
um,
something, or did you just have a thought?
I had the thought of it. Hospitals, because I've been in and out of hospitals.
Okay, what relevance did hospitals have with you? Really?
Oh,
Okay,
shit.
what happened? She's been in the hospital since she was little. Okay, her stomach, she had stomach issues. Okay, so she had surgery at a young age. Okay, so you see that Paula was just sort of reflecting on things, but they resonated with the client. And you can start a conversation with that. We didn't know that about Carmen.
We don't know a lot of
We don't
things.
know about Carmen, to talk, that's just so rare, but we're gonna change that, slowly but surely. Okay, what other things resonated with you? I noticed the hospital immediately, and I was like, oh, I gotta ask about that. What other things resonated? You grew up with your mom, and the arguments with her? Okay, you argue a lot? Okay. Okay, and what other things?
I said my dad's funeral. I talked about my seizures. At the seizure thing, I remember she told me about
Yes,
your
you
cousin.
Okay, so you see that there's relevance between the two people. And this is just an activity where, and these Paula made very personal. When I've done this before with other people, they haven't made it personal. They just said purple, or an egg, or a window, or.
She started very, very personal. right?
Yes,
first-
yes,
first
and then she
thing,
slowly,
yes,
and that's fine.
Yeah,
But there was a connection there
absolutely.
with Carmen. And then you start a dialogue,
Mhm.
and you can start seeing that we have things in common.
And you know, for me, it kind of seemed like she started with kind of hard, tough personal things, but then she started progressing to nicer or more, I would say,
More positive.
positive environments. She started saying about vacation. Well, I think she started with Facebook, then she started going to, I don't know if she said water, and then
Yeah.
She
vacation.
just said
Yes.
water.
Yeah.
Then-
Yes.
And then Jersey, I don't know, was it a happy place for you?
Yeah, it
So,
was.
yeah, okay.
So, my brother's birth was not. I was crying the day he was born in the hospital. My mom was like, "Why are you crying?" And I was like, "Cause I wanted a sister." So yeah, but now I have a lot of friends that have sisters. And
Can't believe you asked
Yeah, you don't.
I always tell my daughter that,
Yeah.
it's good that she's the only girl.
Yeah. What
But
else?
look at all of our biases
Yeah.
about having a sister. Anyone here have a sister?
Yes.
Trish, I know has a sister.
Yeah.
You guys have sisters?
More than one.
Right.
I have a lot of
Just like
You could always say
One.
my
All
family.
of them are younger, but yes.
Okay. So there's a bias amongst us,
You
I
look
have
like one.
sisters too.
Say,
But that was a good observation. She started somewhat negative and then led to the positive. You guys can go back. But that's an activity that you can do
Read that one card.
and just kind of see what comes up with the person in terms of symbol or in terms of the message. So interestingly enough, we are talking about positive psychology this month. And one of the interesting things is that up until now, we have covered something called the negativity bias. So what's the negativity bias?
Like what we
It's
just did about
something,
the
yeah,
sisters.
it's something. that-
Okay, something that has to be related that's negative. How does that work in psychology? What is our bias in negativity towards psychology? Yes, Wendy?
Negativity bias refers to our inclination to put more weight in negative events or outcomes.
Absolutely. We have a tendency, this inclination, to put more weight on things that are negative. Notice that every time that we do a session, or every time that we have a mock counseling, or when you guys are talking, we end up talking about negative events, okay? And one of the things is this fight or flight response. We have trauma. We have trauma. We associate trauma, negativity, difficult and emotions, negative affect, not necessarily feeling okay. What is health? What is happiness?
Wait,
What was that?
I'll let you know when I get
I'll let you know when I get there. Okay, so we have difficulty with happiness. What's happiness or what's health?
For me,
Yeah.
shit, not having all the crap I have to deal with.
Okay, so now we're dealing with someone who has health issues.
Yeah.
Is health the absence of illness? Not necessarily.
No, yeah.
No. Do you think you would be happier if you didn't have those health issues?
To an extent, maybe if I didn't have my mom, but I'd be happy. But
So not necessarily is absence of illness health, but that's been many times what we've associated in psychology as being health. Yes.
To me, health is tying negativity to last and then possibly steer the ship.
Okay, and how do you steer the ship? Okay, and what type of things increase positivity?
Changing the way we think about things.
Okay, it could be changing the way you think about things.
Your life.
What else? Your lifestyle, absolutely. What else?
Your eating habit.
Eating habits contribute to positivity. What else? A big thing. You guys are all planning this party this weekend. What's happening in that? Socializing, relationships, building of relationships. All of that is to foster positivity. But one of the things that happens is the brain gets stuck on this negativity bias. Okay? So stress, we react, whereas positive experiences, they just flow right out. We don't hold on to them as much as we do the negative, right? When we're talking to people, what do we tend to do? We tend to criticize or judge, or we tend to be involved with, you know, the criticism of,
Stress.
what was that?
Release stress.
Release
So
stress.
basically just putting out the stress out there.
Okay,
And
rather
passing
than
it on.
encouraging more positive relationships or positive reactions or positive communication. Studies show that if you're happy and if you're positive and you actually have a positive conversation, that makes that person that you're talking to more happy, and then that person leads it to the next person, to the next person. It could be like 6 or 8 people out just from having a positive interaction with someone.
I just want to say, at work, I see that all the time. There's people that will give you friendly conversation about anything, and there's other people that just come and try to tell you bad stuff about a coworker. It does, like you said, it can bring you down, it can get you upset. It's like, oh, I don't want to hear these people complain about these other coworkers. So, like you said, it can boost the morale, or it can just
Absolutely.
lower and you know, get you in a bad mood.
Yesterday, one of our colleagues was making Mr. Pachi laugh, but laugh like from the gut. They were laughing, like I was laughing a little, but she was in tears. And I was just sitting there, and I was like, how healthy is this? That these people are just laughing like from their core. It was such a positive experience just to be in that energy field. Like I felt a boost after that. I felt like I just got uplifted and said, wow, what a great place to be and what awesome people to be working with. Like I felt that as they were laughing. And I was like in on it, but it was more the two of them. I mean, but I got kahala, like, wah, 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 wah. Like, I mean, and it made me laugh just to hear the excitement and the happiness out of them. So it's contagious, it rubs off.
That happened to me. Remember I told you guys about my mom like instigating the thing when we were talking about politics, and we ended up talking about how, I don't know, my baby daddy. So I got home that day and I told her in a kind way that to not do that. You know, I told her how I felt. So after that, I sat outside at night and I felt so good. Like I was happy, like the stress on my neck and my shoulders just, woo. I was just relaxed and I was like, God, I need more of this. But then, you already know, she killed it with some shit.
But it's okay. It's okay that the
But, yeah.
other person kills it. It's our responsibility.
But yeah, exactly.
And this class is about positive psychology. Okay, so when we tend to be more versed in negative, in the problem, in the trauma, in what goes wrong, now we have this whole school of thought started by Martin Seligman. Now, one of the theories, humanistic theory, actually was a precursor to positive psychology. Do you guys remember humanistic theory? Remember any of the founders? I always talk about one guy with the hat when he fights with his wife. What does that pyramid remind you of?
Pico, right? It was in G. I don't know how to say his
What
last
were
name.
you saying?
The French guy. I don't know how to say his last name. Piaget, whatever.
Oh, Piaget.
Piaget, yeah. It
No,
was
not
him.
Piaget. Positive,
Was it Carl Jung?
no, Jung is more psychoanalytic. So you have Maslow, Abraham Maslow, remember the pyramid, the hierarchy of
yeah.
needs?
Love,
Yeah.
safety.
Absolutely,
foundation.
physiological needs, safety needs, love, esteem, and self-actualization. So humanistic theory was a precursor to the positive psychology movement. Positive psychology now is very, very popular. We see it in the mainstream. A lot of times, and I read this in the book and I kind of liked this definition, because I am a self-help author. I like self-help, but you don't want to call most psychologists self-help people. They're very insulted by that because it's not credible, so to speak. But there's a definition that they said in the book that said self-help meets research, and that is positive psychology. So think about it. If negative affect or negative, is related to stress and trauma, going back to what triggers events in someone, childhood traumas, or illness and hospital visits and things like that, what is positive psychology?
Something we all need. No, I'm just-
Yes,
I
something
need
we
it.
all need, but what would we use as a definition?
Positive psychology, is a branch of psychology that helps a client find the light in a world of darkness.
Okay, those are subjective terms, light in a world of darkness, but you're on the path.
Finding what's that called? Finding positive outcomes as opposed to negative. So like if you're feeling down or whatever, seeing it on the positive side.
Okay, much more positive, absolutely, more positive outcomes. So, the International Positive Psychology Association says, positive psychology is the scientific study. So what are we talking about when we're saying scientific?
It's a proven.
There's research. What was it that there was 10 times more negative psych research done than positive research?
There's it's in, actually, one of the PowerPoints in Blackboard, but they did research and there's like 50% research or more on feelings is geared towards more negative, depressed, and only 5 or 10% of research, not even, is geared towards the opposite, which is studying joy, studying happiness, studying laughter, studying what, makes things positive for people. And so there's very little, which is what this is geared towards, there's very little research towards going towards the, what makes people happy as opposed to what makes them sad. Like Dr. Hughes started out the class saying, well, what do we do as psychologists? Well, people come to you, clients come to you because they have a problem, because they're sad. But nobody comes to the psychologist to say, I want to be happier. I want to feel better about my
They're really
life.
there trying to solve whatever this short-term
Or even to
long-term
maintain.
problem is. I was talking to my son the other day, and I'm like, what would make you happier or less depressed, or whatever words I used? And he's like, knowing what I would study, knowing what I'm gonna study, because he's getting his AA. And I said to him, do you want me to send you to a career counselor? Like, that is an aspect of positive psychology. Someone who is helping you to thrive, someone who's gonna see your assets, and they're going to try to figure out what would be more positive or what would be something that you would thrive or succeed in. That's an area of positive psychology. So the International Positive Psychology Association says, the scientific study of what enables individuals and communities to thrive. So going back to the question, is absence of illness health? We're talking about thriving. Is being absent of illness enough?
Yeah.
It's enough? Is that thriving?
No.
Like, I'm right now cancer-free.
Oh,
Am
yeah.
I thriving
Yeah,
though?
Yeah.
After Paula gets her surgery, will she be thriving? Are people that don't necessarily have a health issue, just a regular normal person that hasn't had any major illness like us, are they thriving?
No.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, a perfectly healthy, physically healthy person can still be depressed.
Yeah.
The best comedians were suffering from depression, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely,
So-
right,
Robin
absolutely. So we have